Now, and look who has gotten up with us this morning, making his maiden voyage with us. Cliff Averill is here today.
Thank you.
Talking football and a whole bunch more. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I noticed that Farnham is the only one who did get the note about wearing a tie today.
Come on, Farnham.
I've been here since July. In July, it was summertime. There were no ties.
Get with it.
We've evolved a good deal since then. But meanwhile, we're still talking about the same thing, and that's Dak Prescott's contract. He threw a career-high 4,902 yards last year. That was second in the NFL behind Jameis Winston. He came up 1 yard shy of matching Tony Romo for the most in a single season in Cowboys franchise history. And that wasn't all. He threw for a career-high 30 touchdowns. That was fourth in the league. He joined Romo as the only quarterbacks with 30 passing touchdowns in a season in Cowboys history. And he had a total QBR of 70.1. That was fourth in the sport. It's the second time he has posted a quarterback rating of at least 70 in his career. He had a QBR of over 77 his rookie year. In case you're not familiar with QBR, those are really good numbers. So it begs the question, why doesn't he have a contract? Here's part of the answer from Cowboys president Stephen Jones talking about the franchise tag. Quote, "Our goal is to avoid it. We want to get a deal done. We're going to roll up our sleeves, and when these things get momentum, they get done. But both sides have got to be in a place where we think we're within shouting distance of getting something done." And it feels like since the beginning of this, I've been shouting at Dan Graziano, and your answers have remained the same. But now the clock is, we have a friend, Andrew Brandt, who frequently says deadlines spur actions. Well, this deadline is finally coming on this franchise tag.
Yeah, but not soon, right? I hope I'm here the day he signs. Like,
Me too.
The payoff
And I
is
hope
really
it's
important
today.
to me at this point. Look, they have to do the franchise tag by March 10th, right? They have a window, 2-week window there. So if nothing's done by March 10th, they'll franchise him. And if nothing's done by July 15th, then he has to play out the year on the franchise tag. Something has to happen to make it move, and it's not going to happen on February 10th, unfortunately. If they get to the start of the offseason program and he's not there, that could be an interesting flex point because the Cowboys aren't allowed to require him to be there for voluntary workouts. They can't come out and say, yes, we want him here for the start of our program in April. That would be against the rules because those workouts are voluntary. But if he doesn't show up for that, that's an interesting point because that might let them know, hey, he's serious. He's trying to make a statement here that he might dig in on this, and that could prompt them to move in contract.
And so we talked today, and you brought up there the time when they can franchise tag him mid-March and then to mid-July where then they wouldn't be able to negotiate. The problem is that's where the entire offseason, Greeny, resides. You're bringing in a new coach. He's bringing in a new system that Dak has never played in. West Coast, it's going to be different terminology. And outside of him learning it, you're going to craft the offense to what your quarterback does well. And he was with Aaron Rodgers for 10 years. It's not like he knows Dak Prescott, the ins and outs and what he's going to do. So you can't build this thing for 6 months and all of a sudden August 1st say, hey, Dak's back. Let's just figure out what he does and then move in and go in on the season.
Okay, you had the franchise tag put on you before. Obviously, it's different for a quarterback, your experience, and then why it's different for a quarterback.
Exactly. It's completely different for a quarterback. For myself, I got franchise. Your running back gets franchise. Your linebackers get franchise. The offseason program will continue without you. Yeah, yes, you're a part of the team, but for a quarterback, you need him there day one. And it's extremely important that they make that happen because the leadership piece of it, a new system, new coach. I'm sure when McCarthy signed that contract, he knew or thought his quarterback would be there day one to develop and bring these guys along. You cannot go a whole offseason without having a quarterback.
Well, you were telling us this morning that when you got the franchise tag, you weren't unhappy about it. And what did you expect to happen after you signed it?
Well, I was unhappy initially, but then I expected to sign a long-term deal. I expected to be with that organization the following year.
And what actually happened?
I left and went and won a Super Bowl in Seattle.
Okay, that's the point, is that these things tend to take a turn. And so the question is, will they approach a point where a turn needs to be taken? We all act as though this thing is going to happen, but far stranger things have happened than one way or another Dak Prescott not being in Dallas next year.
Sure, I still think it's very unlikely. I think he's the Cowboys quarterback for this year and for the future. That is still their plan and his. But yeah, you get to who flexes their leverage first. Their leverage is the franchise tag. We will put the franchise tag on you. That's going to be $27 million. If you're looking for 35, 36, 37, this is a lot less. Let's meet in the middle. His leverage point is, maybe I won't show up for the start of that offseason program. I don't have to, especially if I'm franchised. I don't even have to go to training camp.
Yeah.
So how much is he willing to do that and call their bluff?
You know what we only have a minute here. What I've never had Cliff answer is, how good do you think he is? When you look at the quarterbacks in the NFL, we have talked about him ad infinitum on this program, but I've never heard your opinion. Is he an elite quarterback, or is he going to become an elite quarterback in the NFL and deserves to be paid like those guys?
I think he is an elite quarterback. One thing, and Bob, you know this, you only get so many opportunities at a bite of the apple, meaning a new contract, right? So you have to take advantage of this. He's played his best season last year. The record didn't necessarily show that, but for him in particular, he's growing every year. And that's what you want to see from a young quarterback. You want to see him grow. You want to see the growth in him and become that leader of that football team, and that's what he's become.
So I don't think he's one of the top 5 guys in the NFL, but if he's from 5 to 10, you can win a Super Bowl. He played like that this year. He's a really tremendous leader, which is why you need him there during the offseason to provide that leadership. And if he's not there during the offseason, I like Dallas as probably one of the 2 or 3 favorites out of the NFC to potentially contend for the Super Bowl. If he doesn't show up until training camp, I would say you have to completely change those odds.
Yeah, that's the end of the season.
And one of the things, too, is there's a new offense that they'll be implementing. We'll talk about that more later on this show. But one of the biggest questions heading into this offseason is where Tom Brady will end up signing. Michael Irvin was on WEEI in Boston recently, discussed a very interesting possibility of the Cowboys trading Dak Prescott and signing Brady. Here's what Irvin said.
At that Super Bowl in Miami, some very significant people and I had some conversations leaning in that same direction, and it was shocking. I mean, I had a vodka cranberry in my hand, and when they said it to me, I put the drink down and said, let's talk a little bit more.
Wait, what? Okay, Irvin went on Twitter Sunday to clarify those comments. He said, I never said Jerry or anyone in the organization said this to me. It was not anyone with the Dallas Cowboys. First of all, Dan Graziano, did you see this happening at all?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I don't see it happening. No,
But can we all agree that Michael
was
Irvin is a national treasure?
He is. He is.
That's
and
my
I would
favorite
love to
soundbite
have
of the
a
year so
vodka
far.
cranberry with Michael Irvin and talk this over a little bit more. But I think it's, look, and he clarifies and said it didn't come from the Dallas Cowboys. That's a pretty important clarification, right? If he's talking to people in the Cowboys organization and they're saying this, that's one thing. Everything's going to be all over the map with Tom Brady until he reaches a decision on where he's going to play. It's not bad for the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry and Stephen Jones if this is out there, right? I mean, they talk about leverage, right? If Dak Prescott has it in his head, oh, they might replace me with Tom Brady, maybe that. It's all about how pushing the guy toward you in the negotiation. But in terms of Brady, I think this would be shocking. I believe the Dallas Cowboys' plan is for Dak Prescott to be their quarterback, and I don't think that this is something that's being talked about at any serious level in their building.
Absolutely. I think that's the long-term play. But Jerry didn't get to where he is in life by not exploring every opportunity, every possible option. So it wouldn't surprise me if he would kick the tires on this. It's only going to help their leverage. And then let's just say, for instance, that he does go there. Greeny, you ready to move down to Dallas, take the whole studio down there to cover ad nauseum as a Dallas Cowboy emerging?
Wow.
Tom Brady as a Dallas Cowboy equals ratings bonanza. But here's the one thought that I have on this, because we look at Brady as though, well, this is a wide open thing. He hasn't made up his mind yet. And what I'm reminded of is, after LeBron and D. Wade and Chris Bosh all came together in Miami, sometime thereafter it came out, they had decided that 2 years before. LeBron going to the Lakers was decided at least a year in advance. Kevin Durant going to the Nets was decided way in advance. We had people inside, we all know this, had people inside telling us, oh, he's going to Brooklyn, lock, stock, and barrel, months before it happened. So why should I believe that Tom Brady, who is as meticulous with this sort of thing as any human man who eats avocado ice cream, is going to walk into this process wide open? I don't buy that for 1 second. I believe he knows what he's doing.
I don't think he's 100%, from what I understand. I think he knows the landscape. I think he knows who's going to be interested, and he may have an idea in his head, this is where I'm probably going to end up. But in the NFL, you have to know what the team's going to look like, too. There are other decisions these teams are making. The Patriots, the Chargers, the Raiders, whoever it is that's going to be in the Tom Brady market are making other decisions on how their team is going to be constructed. And Tom Brady's going to want to know how those decisions shake out before he decides where he's going to go. So I get your point, and I think you're more right than not. First of all, it's illegal for him to have contact with these teams until March 16th.
Of course
so,
it is.
Right, but we all know that sometimes, these deals come together shockingly quickly when free agency opens. But I think we're still at a fairly early point in the process, even though we're talking about, 5-6 weeks from now where he probably will be signed with someone. Well,
I think first and foremost with Tom, I don't see him leaving, right? Because we all know, again, Bobby, how hard it is to play a long time in this NFL, but to play on one organization for a long time, right? I played 10 years, played for 2 organizations. That's huge, right? But Tom Brady's been with one organization for 20 years. I feel like that throws off that legendary story, right? There's a story of, man, playing for one organization, bringing championships. And then if you look at what Tom has done in Boston, TB12, his workout facility is next door to their practice facility. Like, nobody's leaving all that behind to go play somewhere else, and especially not for the Cowboys. And if it is the Cowboys, you're talking about a 1 to 2 year rental for Tom Brady, and then you have a Dak Prescott who could probably be there for the next 10 years. I just don't think that's a good business move per se.
And as you look at this, to dovetail kind of what you said, Greeny, there's probably a couple different places, but different than the NBA. It's not like Tom just has to call 1 or 2 guys to get them to go.
Yeah.
It's the coaching staff. He had to figure out what was going on in New England, who is going to be where, and some of these are going to be scheme and system fits where he's going to probably need to sit down. And if he wants to go play for John Gruden, can we blend your version of the West Coast with kind of what I've always done? Because that's a very unique process.
But Dan Graziano, didn't he fight like crazy to get this into his contract, the ability to be an unrestricted free agent without them being able to franchise him months and months ago? So the notion that he just woke up the day after they got eliminated by Tennessee and said, well, now I'm a blank slate, I don't buy that at all.
No, but I mean, Adam Schefter was sitting in probably this very chair in maybe October when this was all going down, saying this brings in the possibility that he would go somewhere else. My understanding of this situation, Tom Brady is eager to be a free agent and pick his next destination. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I'm not 100% sure that it's 100% set. He has some other things he needs to figure out before he decides.
You always want options, right? I think that's why he put that clause in there, is you want options, one, to be able to re-up. The market is completely different from what it was a year ago. Tom Brady thinks, especially if he would win a Super Bowl, you're talking about $40 million a year, you know? So you want those options as far as from a contract standpoint to be able to get out of it if you're playing at a high level, to be able to get more money.
We'll see what happens. In the meantime, coming off a standout rookie year,